after his first studio fails, there's a young man that boards a train heading west with just $40 in his pocket and a box of drawings that are by his side. He's bankrupt, he's discouraged, and he's barely holding on to hope. But back in a veterans hospital recovering from tuberculosis, the young man's older brother refuses to let his brother's dreams fail. The brother never mocks the young man's dream. He doesn't push the young man to get a real job or something safer. Instead, he says, try again. And when the brothers start over in Los Angeles, one draws while the other budgets. One dreams in color and the other watches every single penny. And every time the dreamer jumps, the older brother makes sure that the landing is possible. But the dream only grows more impossible. A studio and a theme park with no investors, no proof of concept, and no safety net. The banks laughed at him. Didn't work. Advisors warn him off, but the young man's brother still leans in. He spends years working back channels, convincing lenders, and stretches every dollar. The brother walks with the young man through ridicule, failure, and wild ambition. And when the dream finally is revealed and opens its gates in 1955, the crowd cheers and enjoys Disneyland. Come on, you guys got to know this one, right? Now later, when death arrives way too soon for the younger brother, the still grieving older brother postpones his retirement and chooses to finish the vision because it mattered to the brother that he loved and lost. And when the second park opens in 1971 in Orlando, Florida, there we go. Yeah, instead of naming it after himself, the brother names it Walt Disney World. It's not Disneyland. It's not Roy Disneyland. It's Walt Disney World. The world remembers the artist, the dreamer, and the face of imagination, but behind it all is a brother and a true friend to the end. Quiet, steady, and relentless. And when later asked about his role in Walt's success, Roy Disney, this is what he answered. He said, Walt dreamed it, but I made sure he had the encouragement to make it happen. It wasn't that he made sure he had the money. He made sure that he had the encouragement to make it happen. In the Old Testament, we find in Proverbs 18, the beginning of Proverbs 18 and the end of Proverbs 18, they both have wisdom about the importance of friendship. And in verse 1, it says, and in an unfriendly person, a bad friend pursues selfish ends and against all sound judgment starts quarrels. Anybody have one of those friends before? It's like, man, you guys are just drama. I don't need more drama in my life. I need a friend that's not going to start quarrels. I need one that's going to end them. And then it skipped down to verse 24. It says, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. The true friendship is more important. It is one of the more important relationships in all of life. It's sometimes we look at friendship and we're kind of like, once you get a little older, maybe you get married, and you get a job, you don't really need friends anymore. And I think many of us probably have started to recognize that's probably when you need friends the most. Now, we've been talking about this idea of forged in fire, and the guy up there, it's not a picture of me, the guy that's up there, he's got his anvil down here and the hammer, and he's about to hit the anvil. An anvil is one of the more important tools that a blacksmith uses when forging metal. And just as a blacksmith needs a solid anvil to shape and strengthen metal being worked on, we're going to see today how a well-known king named David needs his friendship with Jonathan to steady himself in the fires of life. And see, what an anvil does is it absorbs the force of the hammer, providing stability. And Jonathan is that unwavering presence, absorbing David's burdens and reinforcing his faith and in God's plan. Now, can I give you a study? This is going to be one of those scary studies a little bit, okay? So, according to a 2022 study, so it's not that old, but it's pretty new. According to a 2022 study, only 51% of Americans consider friendship very important in life. In other words, only half your friends care about you. That's it. They don't really think it's that. They don't really think it's that important. But in another study, 12% of Americans report having no friends. You're like, 12%? That could be worse. Well, here's the thing. That's a rate that's quadrupled just in the last 30 years. It's quadrupled the amount of people that would say they don't have any friends. They've got somebody to play Xbox with. They've got somebody to chat with and send a text to every now and then, but they don't really have any friends. But how many true friends do you have in your life? Friends who you can not just laugh with, but you can cry with. You can pray with, and you can share the highs, the lows of life, and everything in between. How much time do you spend with those true friends? Because here's what we're gonna find out is that true friendship sharpens us in our faith. It sharpens our courage through the battles that we have in life. And so today we find ourselves in the events that are described in the history of 1 Samuel, where a young shepherd named David is about to meet the man who will become his best friend, Jonathan, who is the son of King Saul. Now there's a backstory to this that we need to look at. It demands our attention. And so Saul, who's the first king of Israel, is a man that's chosen not because he's brilliant, not because he's a man of God. He's chosen because he looks the part. He's chosen because he stands head and shoulders above everybody else. He's a good-looking dude. He's who you would look to and say, I want that guy to represent me and my nation. When we send somebody else out, we want him to represent us. He looks the part. But beneath the exterior, insecurity is gnawing at him. And throughout his reign, he proves to be a man he's driven by fear and driven by self-doubt instead of driven by God. And as David's star begins to rise, Saul's jealousy burns. David's victory over the mighty Goliath, you've heard that story, sparks a firestorm. And when the Israelites tremble before the giant, David, who's armed only with a sling and his faith, takes him down with a single stone. And everyone erupts in celebration, and the women sing songs praising David's name. The words echoed through every village, and this is what they sang, and we see this in 1 Samuel 18:7. This is what they sang. They sang, Saul has slain his thousands. You know, Saul's got to think, this is pretty good for me. I like this part. I've slain thousands. I'm the man. I'm good. And then they go to the second part of it. But David, his tens of thousands. And you can just imagine if you're the king and you're hearing all the women singing the song and you're going, Saul is okay, but David's better. That's what he heard. That's what he heard. And Saul's envy boils over, and David is no longer just some shepherd. He's now a threat to the crown. Anybody ever experienced that before? Somebody you thought was a friend, but then all of a sudden, maybe you did really well at work. Maybe you had just a killer presentation and the bosses took notice. Maybe you did great on the sports field. I don't know what. Maybe you had this moment where all of a sudden now your friend sees you as a threat and things start to change in your relationship. Maybe you've been that friend and you had a friend that their star started to rise and the envy started to well up and you didn't know how to react. And while Saul's anger begins to heat up, another relationship comes along that changes the shape and course of David's life. And the crazy thing is, it's Saul's son, Jonathan, the crown prince, the one that's destined to take over and be the next king, to be the heir. The one that's already knows what it's like to be in battle, know what it's like to wear armor, and all of a sudden, this other guy, the shepherd, comes along with a little sling, and now he's getting songs sung for him. And so we look at 1 Samuel, chapter 18, verse 1, and it says, and David had finished talking with Saul. This is right after he had defeated Goliath. He had finished talking with Saul, and Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. The enemies aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities for spiritual growth. And while Saul is already proving to be an untrustworthy and controlling influence in David's life, we see that Jonathan is becoming a true friend. And this is kind of weird for us, especially as men in Western culture in the year 2025. It seems a little weird to have a relationship like that with another guy that you would describe as like his one in spirit. He loved him as himself. And can I just say something? This says a lot more about how low our culture has gotten, rather than how crazy this was. The fact that we would look at a relationship like this and go, that's weird. That doesn't seem normal. Like, what? I don't understand that. Especially guys, I just got to challenge you, like, men, it's okay to have a friend that you love. It's okay to have a friend that you care for deeply. It's okay to have a friend that's going to challenge you, that's going to push you, that's going to be there for you. And if you don't have those type of friends, that's what this morning is all about, challenging us to get there. But look at how Saul's son responds to David's sunrise. We know what Saul does. Saul says, hey, I want to keep my friends close, but I'm going to keep my enemy closer. And so he keeps David from going off. It's like, you're not going back home. You're not going out because I think maybe you could like get your own army going on. You're going to stay right here. And I don't really like that you're right near me, but I can see what you're doing and I know what you're doing. And I'll even try to manipulate the situation that people like you, that maybe they'll like me more because of it and because you're around. But Jonathan does something different. It says, verse 3, and Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. See, a true friend doesn't just show up, they hold you up. They don't just show up and say, okay, I'm here. They actually do something about it. It's not exactly like anything that we have in modern terms. The closest kind of words that we would have to covenant that we use are contracts and commitments. But contracts are more transactional, focused on terms and loopholes and protections of things come apart. And I think that's how a lot of our friendships are. They're more like contracts. I'm your friend as long as I can get something from you. I'm your friend as long as you can get me some more people that like me on LinkedIn. I'll be your friend as long as you don't embarrass me. I'm your friend for a lot of different things, but there comes a moment when the contract, it's void. And I'm going to bail. And so that's a contract. And then we have commitments. But for us, in our culture, commitment is hardly binding. People make commitments all the time, and they break them very easily. But for Jonathan and David, a covenant is understood as something far deeper. It's a sacred relational bond made before God and between people that says, I'm with you no matter what. I won't walk away when things get hard. I'm not here for a season. I'm here for the whole story. Your burdens are my burdens too. And if God's with you, I am too. I'll protect your future, even if I'm not in it. And can I just tell you, this goes completely against cancel culture. Completely against it. And I'm not here just to say, hey, anybody can say whatever they want to say and have no repercussions. But our culture has gotten to the point where I can no longer be friends with anyone if they have ever done or ever said anything that would embarrass me. Man, that's not the kind of friends I want. Because I'm going to say some dumb and embarrassing things all the time. I'm going to do some embarrassing things all the time. I want a friend that's going to be with me when I recognize the dumb things that I've done. Or when I don't recognize it, they have to point it out. But on the flip side, too, that's the type of friend I want to be. I want to be the type of friend that, sometimes it happens have some pastor buddies and they'll say something dumb. They might even post it on social media. I've even had some pastor friends get in the news because they've said dumb things. And it can be very easy to go, I'm just going to distance myself from you and not have anything to do with you. That's very easy to do that because, I don't want people to think I think that. So now I can't be even associated with you in any other way. And a lot of times these aren't even big issues, not even big things, but it happens. And I bet that when you're at work, when you're at the baseball field, soccer fields, I bet there are some friends that you have that have said or done some really dumb things. But I wonder how easy it is to cancel them out rather than to walk through them and to help restore them. Right? Because the goal is not to just go, hey, that was dumb, but no big deal. And the goal is, hey, that was dumb. Let me walk with you and let's not repeat that. Right? So we want to be there, but do you have this kind of true friend in your life? Are you that kind of friend to somebody else? In verse 4, this is where we see that the covenant's not entered into lightly. This isn't just hey, we got a cool handshake going on, and now we're bros. No, this is deeper than that. In verse 4, it says this. It says, Jonathan took off the robe that he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. And so we see already that hey, a true friend doesn't just show up, they hold you, but also a true friend positions you for God's purposes. A true friend sets you up for God's purposes. And as physical markers of this covenant, Jonathan gives David gifts that are practical, purposeful, and they're symbolic. These gifts they're practical. David's a shepherd. He's not a warrior. And by giving David his armor and weapons, Jonathan equips him for his new role in the king's court and military. I give you something that's worth something that's actually going to help you get through what you need. And these gifts also from Jonathan to David are purposeful. Then we look and see what happens right after that. Verse 5. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well. And so they're not only just practical gifts, but now we start to see that these gifts from Jonathan to David are powerful. Remember, we talked about it that as Saul's son, Jonathan is the heir to the throne. But by Jonathan giving up his princely garments, he's humbly submitting to God's will, and he's already accepting that David, not he, is God's chosen future king. And these gifts also symbolize a protection and alliance. And so you see David taking off this robe, this tunic, this sword, and giving it to him. And he's saying, you're not just my friend, but I now recognize that you're going to be my king. See, when we talk about friendships, when we talk about just being a man or a woman of God, I think a lot of us were like, I want to be a David. I want to be a man after God's own heart. I want to be a warrior. I want to be that. But could I just say that maybe we don't need more Davids, we need more Jonathans who would be willing to say, I don't have to be number one in this relationship. I'm going to be here to be like Jesus, to be like a Jonathan, and I'm going to lay down what the world looks like and says is my right, and I'm going to say, I'm going to be humble, like my King Jesus, and I'm going to be here to serve my friend. And that's what Jonathan does. In verse 13, after some tension between David and King Saul, it's kind of a back and forth thing constantly, Jonathan secretly meets with David to confirm his father's deadly intentions. And this is what he says. He says, but if my father intends to harm you, may the Lord deal with Jonathan, be it ever so severely, if I do not let you know and send you away in peace. May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father, but show me unfailing kindness like the Lord's kindness as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, May the Lord call David's enemies to account. And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. A true friend sticks with you even when the sparks start to fly. By siding with David, Jonathan is not just looked down upon, but he's now putting a price on his own head. And he's recognizing that, hey, God has already set you up. But like an anvil paired with a hammer, true friends are part of the process and not afraid of the pressure. And Jonathan protects David and reminds him of who he is and who God is. And then when Saul finds out, look what he says to Jonathan. This is his own father. Remember, this is his father speaking. Verse 30. Saul's anger, in chapter 27, Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? Now, let me just reiterate. This is giving us the history, especially high school, college age guys. This is giving you a history of how Saul talked about his mother or his wife. It's not giving you a way and a directive of how you speak to your mother or to your wife. Okay? And so he's saying he's in anger and he's yelling and he flies off the handle and he's like, You son of whatever, and we would fill in the blank with something different. But this is what he says. And he says, As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send someone to bring him to me, for he must die. Why should he be put to death? What has he done? Jonathan asked his father. But Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him, his own son. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger on that second day of the feast that he did not eat, because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. You have that kind of friend in your life. Because a true friend takes hits that others don't see. Jonathan risks the wrath of his father to protect David, even when it hurts, because he believes in what God's making of David. Saul never comes around on David despite Jonathan trying. And the time comes for David and Jonathan to kind of split up. In verse 41, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. And they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord is witness between you and me, between your descendants and between my descendants forever. Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. Here's the other thing. A true friend lets go when it's time to move forward. They don't hold you back because they can't go along for the ride. They let you go. They send you off. In this story, David ends up apart from Jonathan and alone because his friend saved his life. Now, I want to finish by putting up some concentric circle on the screen. And it just kind of highlights a little bit about different relationships. And we talked about this before, that as steel is heated up, it kind of changes different colors, right? Different relationships are going to be a little bit more potent, a little bit more important, and they might have a little bit more impact in your life. And it's important to recognize that, to realize it. We talk about some social relationships in here. We have social relationships with our neighbors, our coworkers, acquaintances. We have private relationships with our friends, extended family. We have just true friendship, like what we're talking about with Jonathan here. Closest friends, close family. And then you have intimate relationships like those that you might have with your spouse and your children. And they all are important, but they all kind of impact you in different ways. And so I just want to look through these just a little bit. By answering a question from religious leaders, Jesus tells his followers what is the second greatest commandment. The first, of course, was to love God, right? The second commandment in Matthew 22:39, he says, the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then the Apostle Paul echoes Jesus' teachings in a letter to the early church in Galatians 5:14. It says, the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, if we put that image back up on the screen, I want you to kind of work through this and think about it. Think of your coworkers and your acquaintances. How do you love them? Remember, the second is love your neighbor as yourself. Your larger circle of friends, how do you love them? How do they love you? Your closest friends, who loves you as they love themselves? Your spouse, your children, what does it mean to love them as you love yourself? And what practical ways can you love them? What ways do they love you this way? And I just want to give you a few simple steps that you can take toward true friendships that I think God will use to shape your life or the life of someone you love. And you can write these down. The first is this. These are real practical. Okay, how do I put this idea of loving my neighbor into practice? How can I just do a few things this week? The first one is this. Thank one person in your life who is a true friend. Thank one person in your life. Send them a message. Give them a call. Go grab lunch or dinner with them this week. When was the last time that you actually let somebody know that you were grateful for how they've treated you, how they've been there for you? Like, actually let them know. Thank them. The second one, this one's a little bit harder, right? It's easy to send a text sometimes and say, hey, thanks, appreciate it. With you, love you. It's great. The second one is a little bit more like what Jonathan does for David. Remember when Jonathan gave up something that showed his royalty? He gave that to David. He gave that up so that then David could rise. What would it look like for us to lay something down to lift someone else up? See, it cost Jonathan something. He gave Jonathan something, or Jonathan gave David something valuable to him. Swords weren't cheap back then. Gave something of value to him, monetarily, but he also gave something of value to him with his influence. How could you lay something down this week to lift someone else up? What's something that you can give to someone else to help forge them forward in their faith? Third thing, stand beside someone facing pressure, even if it costs you something. Like an anvil, sometimes being a true friend means standing with somebody and taking the blows with them. And you may not even know it because you haven't checked in with them. Right? Send them that message. Give them a call. Hey, how are you doing? Again, I talk to the guys because I'm a guy, so I struggle. Like, I wasn't smart enough to figure out how to whittle down the best man in my wedding, so I had two. Like my best dudes. And we just did that, right? And like the best men in my wedding. And you're like, how often do you guys hang out? How often do you guys talk? Goodness, can't even remember the last time we talked. Like, and guys, we do that, right? Guys, we got to be intentional with our friendships. We've got to be intentional with our relationships with others. I wouldn't even know how to help some of my friends if I didn't ask them how they're doing, ask them what's going on in their life. And then the fourth thing is to ask God for the courage to be an anvil for somebody else. Because providing support requires a response that's more than just words. And sometimes it costs us something. Sometimes it hurts a little bit. But are we willing to lay down our lives like Jesus laid down his life for us? And some of you are asking, like, why does a 1,000-year-old story about two guys and their friendships even matter? Like, why does it matter? Like, maybe you're not facing battles and betrayals and moments when everything around you feels like it's closing in. Maybe you're just kind of getting through life. Maybe you just need somebody who truly stands by you. Maybe you need somebody that's going to be like iron sharpening iron. That's like, you're just skating through life, but you have so much more that God can do through you and in you if you would let him. And just as Jonathan stood by David in life's fiercest fires, here's the amazing thing, that we cannot do all of the things that we talked about just by us trying harder. It all starts with Jesus. Just like Jonathan stood by David, Jesus stands by you. Like, that's not a hippie feel-good type of statement. Like, Jesus stands by you because he died for you. He paid the price for you. He loves you. He cares for you. He also doesn't want to see you stay where you are. But he's not going to say, hey, I'm over here because I'm better. When you're good enough, make your way over to me. We have a true friend that he laid down his life for us when we were not just far off, but we were dead in our trespasses. Dead. He paid the price so that we could be made alive with him. And John, who's one of Jesus' closest friends and followers, remembers Jesus saying this: the greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Here's the thing we have to remember: laying down your life isn't just about dying. Laying down your life is in the everyday moments of going, your life before mine. God's will before my will. If you long for a friendship that never fails and a relationship that redeems your past, carries the weight of this life and never lets you go, there is great news, because Jesus said, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That's the kind of friend that we have in Jesus. One that will give you